Hello everyone, welcome to Call Sign Charlie Models. Time for another inbox review, and today we have another aircraft from Trumpeter in 1/32 scale, the F-100D Super Sabre right here. So a few weeks ago we did the F-100F Super Sabre, which was a two-seater version, and today we're doing the single-seater version. So going off with the box art, again, like always, Trumpeter has some very nice box art up front, and then for a length, we have 516 millimeters with a wingspan of 369.5 millimeters, which in US units is 20.31 inches with a wingspan of 14.5 inches. We have a total parts count of more than 410 pieces. We have one photo etch fret and a film for our instrument panel with a total of 19 sprues, and we do have, from what the kit says, metal landing gear struts. Now going off to the side of the box, we have three different liveries right here from the 309th Fighter Bomber Squadron 31st Fighter Bomber Wing, flown by Captain Walt Bruce, base at Tactical Air Command Gunnery, 1958. We have the 511th Fighter Bomber Squadron 405th Fighter Bomber Wing, based at Langley Air Force Base in Langley, Virginia, during the May of 1959. And then we have Thor's Hammer of the 309th Tactical Fighter Wing, or Squadron, 31st Tactical Fighter Wing, based at Tai Hau Air Base in South Vietnam. So, don't know which one of these I'm going to do. I really do like all of them, but we'll have to see. And then going off to the other side, we have a nice history about the F-100 right here in various different languages, and then we have some pictures of the built model right here. So let's get this box opened up and let's see how packed it is with plastic. That actually came off really easily. I typically struggle to get the boxes off, but looking at the plastic, we have a nice amount of plastic, and it looks like all the bags are individually wrapped for the most part. Some of them, there are two sprues in the bags, and that's because those sprues are double sprues. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get everything set up and off to the side, and we can start going through the instructions, decals, and all the plastic included in this kit. So give me 1 second, I'll be right back. Alright, so starting off with the instructions, we have the typical standard Trumpeter layout for our instructions with the landscape booklet right here in black and white, and this is item number 02232. We have standard read before assembly, decal application, and our symbols that we're going to be using throughout the build. Then when we open it up, we have our sprue callouts right through here. Again, they are numbered, but very hard to read, so get your readers or a magnifier out if you need to see the numbers on here. We also have this sprue right here, which has a piece of whiteout tape over it. I'm assuming that's because there were two of these included and now there's only one. And then we also have our decal sheet, our film, our rubber tires, and then our photo etch fret, and also a weight is included in here as well. Alright, so starting off with the kit, we have our ejection seat going on, and then looks like we're working on our back piece for our cockpit. Then we're working on our cockpit floor, and then adding in our sidewalls to our cockpit and back wall and instrument panel going on. Then we're getting all of that sandwiched together. So that piece in number 2 is actually our instrument combing and not the back piece for our cockpit. After that's all done, we are getting our ejection seat put into the cockpit right here. Then after that, we're working on our engine. Again, full length engine. We do have a good amount of photo etch to add to these for all the compressor blades right here going on. You're not really going to be able to see any of those, so yeah. But anyways, so a lot of really nice detail on this engine. You will be able to pull this engine out and show it off. So if you want to go and add a little bit more wiring to it and plumbing to it, it's really going to spruce that thing up. Alright, then moving on, working on our wings, getting our wings attached, and then we have our flaps and slats right here. It looks like they are positionable as well on both wings right here. And then we have our dolly for our tail section going together right here. Alright, then after that's done, working on our intakes, getting our intakes all done along with our cannons as well, getting attached to the intake also. And then we are getting everything put together along with our ammo feed chutes for our guns, our whole intake and engine going in, and then we have our two fuselage halves going together right there. And as you can see right here on how to feed in our ammo belts right there, it looks like we're actually going to feed them in through here. So that's going to look very nice and make painting this a lot easier as well. Alright, so after that, we're working on our tail section, getting the two halves together. Then we have what I think is a skid plate right there. And then we have another bulkhead to add in. Then we have the option of having it on the dolly right here or attached to the fuselage. Alright, then moving on, we're adding in our front section to our nose right here. Have some detail to add to that. And then we have another piece, a panel to cover up our gun ammo feed chutes. So you can leave that off so you can show those ammo feed chutes right there. We're also adding in our rudder and our horizontal tail planes right there. And then we're adding in our tail hook and a few other pieces to our landing gear wells. And then a couple panels for our machine guns. Alright, then moving right along, we're working on our main landing gear, getting the wheels on, and then our struts taken care of, getting those all on, and then we have the refueling probe. We have the option of two different refueling probes with the bent or straight ahead one, or also for the pitot tube in the extended or stowed position as well. Alright, and then up next we are adding in our main landing gear, getting those on. We also have a speed brake, and also the fuel probe was already attached in the previous step. Yes. Alright, so now adding in our main landing gear doors, getting those all assembled and then put into the fuselage after that. And then we are adding our boarding ladder right here. Nice detail. And then canopy, we have the option of having it opened or closed. And then working on our ordnance right here. So you do have a few different ordnance options right here with sidearms, ECM pod, and then some fuel tanks, and then adding those in right along there. Then we have some rocket pods, ECS pod, and also sidewinders right here as well. So far pretty nice on the instructions. So up next we have our paint callouts. Again, nicely done from Trumpeter. Large color callout sheet. Doesn't say what brand the paints are right up here, but going off, the silver is going to be actual natural metal, not silver, but going very nicely in here. We have the Langley Air Base, Virginia during May of 1959. Then we have the one from Tactical Air Command Gunnery of 1958. And then we have one from Vietnam in, doesn't say what year. Again, very nice paint schemes on that. Whichever one I do the F in is, if I do the F in the Southeast Asia camo scheme, I'll be doing the other one in the natural metal scheme. Alright, so moving right along, we have 3 decal sheets to go over, and these decals on this sheet are very large. They do feel okay. They might be, actually they don't feel too thick on those. There is a little bit like a, I can't tell what that is, but a discoloration on there. You can see it right there in the camera. I don't know what's causing that. Hopefully when you apply the decals that won't be an issue. but the rest of the decals do look okay as well. This one's going to be a fun time of applying that one if you decide to use that one. Alright, so up next we have all of our stencils. All the stencils look good. Walkway is spelled correctly. Everything else. This font might look a little bit off on here if I'm being honest with the danger, but everything else looks okay as far as I can tell. Alright, then on to our last decal sheet. More of the national insignia and some tail flash right up here. But again, these decals do feel very nice. Shouldn't be a real issue on any of these decals. Do have a decent amount of carrier film on these, but again, making sure that they conform with some Solvaset shouldn't be much of an issue. Alright, up first for our plastic sprues, we have what looks to be the parts for our dolly. Again, very nice. I'm not seeing any issues with any of the details on here. Not all the pieces seem to be in one piece, so you're going to have a light seam line to take care of, but those aren't that bad. Again, no flash, nice plastic, no issue with that one. And then on this one we have some of our engine detail. Again, no real issues on this side at least. The burner can does look a little bit generic, so I will be definitely getting some aftermarket exhaust for this, just because that just looks really generic. Then we flip it over to the other side. So we do have a few ejector pin marks on these right here. These are going to be part of your engine, but everything else on here you're not going to be able to see on this side. Alright, so going by the box that's inside the box, first we have this little ball weight right here. Feels like it's a decent weight, so I might add a little bit more weight just to make sure that this thing doesn't become a tail sitter. And then we have our clear parts right here. Alright, clear parts do look very nice. We do have some scuffing right on the top edge of the main canopy, but there is no seam line going down the middle, so this should be fairly easy to buff out on that. And then the front canopy, no issues. The plastic is nice and crystal clear. Again, just those few little buff or scratches on the top right here, but again, that shouldn't really be an issue to take care of. Should buff out really easily. Then we have our navigation lights, our instrument panel. Again, all the dials right in here are nice and full dials, so you put the decal on the back end of this, then you're going to paint your instrument panel. It's going to look really nice. Alright, then up next we have photo etch fret. This is all of our compressor blades right here that you're not going to be able to see inside the engine. Then our fan blades for our intakes right here. Decent on that. Photo etch is standard trumpeter thickness, and then we also do have this film for our instrument panel as well. Then we have some rubber ammo belts right here. Get those painted up, and those will go into those ammo feed chutes as well. Then we have our rubber tires, a little bit of sidewall detail and a little bit of tread detail on them. Again, I'm not a fan of the old rubber tires, so I'll definitely be looking into getting some resin tires for this kit. Alright, so up next we have our pylons and everything. The panel line and rivet detail on here is absolutely gorgeous. No issues with any of that. It's a nice depth to it and everything, so it's going to take a wash real nice when it's all done. Then we have our sway braces right here. Very nice on those. And then everything else. You have injector pin marks on, or ejector pin marks on these right here, but you're not going to be able to see them. And for these, I'm not sure what these pieces go to, but we do have an ejector pin mark right in the middle. But I'm thinking on this side you're not going to be able to see. And then we have our engine parts on this side, very nicely detailed. We have a little bit of plumbing detail going on here, and if you really want to, if you're going to pull it out, and you're definitely going to want to add a little bit more to this, but everything else does look fine. It's a 4-piece engine shell, so those are always fun to put together and try to get all lined up. But again, no real issues on this side. And then this side, we do have a lot of ejector pin marks, as you can see, but you are not going to be able to see any of this really when it's all closed up. Alright, so moving right along, we have our landing gear struts, and again, solid landing gear. You know, I did not see metal landing gear struts in the box, so that's a little bit of a false advertising from Trumpeter on that, unless these have metal cores to them, which highly doubt that they would do that. But again, for this is very nice. We have some brake line detail in here, just all around very nicely molded landing gear. Now we do have a couple of ejector pin marks here and here on those, but those should be fairly easy to take care of on that. And we also have our ejection seat, which is some basic detail on those. Shouldn't be too bad. But again, if there's some resin ones out there, which I'm sure there are, I'm sure that will be a lot better. Our wheels, again, for molding detail, looks pretty decent on here. Yeah, not too much to complain about on this sprue, minus a couple of ejector pin marks on the landing gear, but that should be fairly easy to take care of. Then we have these landing gear doors right here. Absolutely gorgeous detail on the inside, as you can see on both of those, and no ejector pin marks as well, so very nice. And even on these doors as well, very nice detail, and no ejector pin marks on those. Alright, then up next we have our speed brake. We do have a couple of ejector pin marks on here, but they're not too bad. A little bit of putty. We do have a broken piece right here that broke off. I'm gonna have to fix that. Shouldn't be too hard to fix. And then we have our speed brake, our wells right here. Again, some nice cable detail in there. A little bit of dry brushing to get the separation between those, or shaving those off and then doing it all with lead wire right there. Alright, and then on these pieces, this is our HUD. But this is the only side of it that you're going to be able to see. Then we have a few other pieces right here. We have the brackets for our tail section right here. Again, nicely detailed. And then our guns. Our guns even have the barrels drilled out on them. Hopefully the camera will pick that up. Yep. They are, yep. So half of it's going to be going up against a block right there. So you won't be able to see this side. So no issues with that. And then some decent detail on these guns as well. Alright, so up next we have a double sprue, and this is our fuel tanks and our AIM-9Bs right here. Again, pretty nice. They are single molded, so we don't have to worry about halves. Just a light seam line down the middle to scrape off with our hobby knife. But other than that, the fuel tanks are in 2 pieces. There is a little bit of a rib detail down them, as you can see, but not much detail to these at all. But they should look pretty fine when they're all put together and painted up. Alright, so up next we have some more detail. This is for our nose section right here. Some nice rivet detail on there, hoping that the camera will pick that up. Pretty nice on that. And then our instrument panel actually looks very, very nice. Hoping that the camera will pick up this detail. Let me get zoomed in a little bit more. Hopefully the camera will pick it up. Zoom out a little bit more. Yeah, there's some pretty nice detail on that instrument panel. And then you're going to have the glass plate that goes in there with the decal with the actual dials on the backside. So that is going to look very nicely when it's all done. And then we also have our gun ports right here. For the reverse side, not really worried about much of this, except for basically these 2 pieces are the only ones that really need any concern. And there are no issues with any of those as well. All of those look very nice. No ejection pin marks on there. Some nice rivet detail on there as well. Alright, so up next we have another sprue with some fuel tanks. Same detail as before with the other fuel tanks. Then we have what I think is an ECM pod right here, or a jammer going on. And then we have our rocket pods. Rocket pod looks okay for injection molding. Of course, there's going to be better out there in resin. And then for our actual ECM pod right here, some nice detail on that as well. Can't tell. Nope. Alright, so we're all good on that. Wasn't sure if a piece broke off, but these are a little bit thick on the fins right here, so definitely going to want to sand these down or get some aftermarket from ResKit or Edward on these. Alright, so up next we have a double sprue with our wings right here, and as you can see, alright, so as you can see, absolutely gorgeous panel line and rivet detail. That looks like panel lines, but they're actually rivets, if you can see it in the camera right there on there. So very nice rivet and panel line detail on that wing, and then same thing on the underside with the panel lines and rivets going through there as well. And we also have a little bit of detail inside the landing gear well as well. Then for our flaps, again, not just panel lines, no rivet detail on those, but those should be okay. Alright, so up next we have what looks to be our AOA probe right here. Again, we can have that in the fold, or yeah, we have one option right here with the extended AOA probe, and then we have the other one right here in the folded position right there to help save some space. And then for our horizontal stabilizers, again, we have some nice rivet detail on there. Kind of looks a little bit generic. We'll have to see how accurate that is, but the detail on it is pretty nice. And the same thing with all of our landing gear doors on this side. The actual detail on this one is actually pretty soft. Doesn't look like the molding went all the way through on this piece, and it's the same thing over here on this one as well. But for the rest, like our boarding ladder right here looks nice and thin on the rungs right there, and then we flip it over to the other side. We don't have any issues. Actually, I'm sorry, spoke too early. We do have 2 ejector pin marks on these pieces on both of these landing gear doors, so these are going to take a little bit of work on both sides to get them up to par of the rest of the kit. Alright, and then up next we have our slats right here. Again, just panel lines, no actual rivet detail on these. And then for our tail section, again, absolutely gorgeous rivet detail on here. And from painting up, doing the kind of burnt metal on this area, it really looks good when it's all done. Now flipping it over to the other side, alright, so we do have a lot of large ejector pin marks, and this is going to come into play especially if you're going to take this section off and have it separate from the actual aircraft. You will be able to see these, and also there's no detail on the inside of here, which on the real thing would have had frame detail and all that going on back here. So that is something that if you're going to leave this section off, you're definitely going to want to go in here and do a little bit of scratch building to liven this area up, and also take care of. Alright, so up next we have our last sprue, and this is our fuselage sections, our intakes, and all that. So going by the fuselage, alright, we have some absolutely gorgeous rivet detail on these right here, as you can see. No issues with that. And then with our gun bay, Alright, so that's it for the F-100D Super Sabre in 1/32 scale from Trumpeter. And for the most part, the kit looks absolutely gorgeous. For probably being an older kit, the detail on it actually looks pretty nice with the cockpit detail and all the other detail, except for the exhaust can back here. That looked a little bit bad. The intakes, for the most part, looked really good on the bottom side. On the top side, you did have those 3 ejector pin marks to take care of, but that shouldn't really be an issue with that. They are in a nice big flat area, so sanding that shouldn't really be an issue. The cockpit also, for out of the box, looked pretty nice. I think with this, the only thing I might do is get an aftermarket ejection seat and the aftermarket as well for wheels. I think that should be the only thing I really need for aftermarket for this kit. So the exhaust, ejection seat, and wheels. Thinking that's the only aftermarket I'm going to get for this kit. Because everything else looked absolutely gorgeous with the detail that's on the fuselage. Getting that all painted up and weathered is really going to look nice when it's all said and done. But other than that, that's all I think I have to say about this kit. I hope you guys enjoyed. And if you haven't yet, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, have a great day. Stay frosty and happy modeling.